Hi boys and girls, how are you today? We have got a good book. This is a good one. I sent your families an email that explained to them that you could color a picture and send it to a certain address, and they would make sure that they would get those colorings and those letters that you've made to nursing homes. They're not letting many visitors in the nursing homes right now, and those people might be a little lonely. And so getting mail from you might cheer them up. And I consider that to be a good deed. When you do something like that, that's a good deed. And so we have a book called One Good Deed. And it just starts with one child doing one thing, and it causes a ripple effect. His good deed touches someone, and someone else then does a good deed, and on and on. So this is by Terri Fields, and it's illustrated by Deborah Melman. One Good Deed. Even on sunny days, Lancaster Street seemed dark and gloomy. Neighbors did not smile at each other, or talk to each other, or help each other. So look at this neighborhood street. It's supposed to be a sunny day, but it's gloomy, isn't it? Very gloomy. And I see this bird right here that's bringing a berry to its mate on the nest. I think that's a good deed, don't you? So I think this is maybe how the story's going to start, with that bird doing a good deed. But one day, as Jake climbed his mulberry tree to pick its ripe fruit, he saw old Mrs. Thompson outside her house next door. So there's Jake picking the mulberries, and there's his neighbor. Suddenly he had a thought he had never thought before. I bet she's sad she can't climb trees. I could take her some delicious mulberries. So he picked some, and he knew that she wasn't able to get any because she can't climb trees anymore. So he took her some. That was a good deed, wasn't it? When Jake arrived, Mrs. Thompson was surprised. She was delighted she had enough fruit to make 2 mulberry pies. So she had enough fruit to make not 1 but 2. What do you think she's going to do with the second pie? I think she might share it with that neighbor next door. Let's see. Then she had a thought she had never thought before. I loved getting these mulberries. I bet Mr. Riley next door would like one of my pies. So she made the second pie for Mr. Riley. And look, you can tell in this window, it's Mr. Riley. He's got his dog, and there is his dog. When Mrs. Thompson arrived, Mr. Riley was surprised. Mr. Riley was delighted. As he ate the delicious pie, he looked out the window and watched the kids next door playing ball. Suddenly he saw the ball land on the roof of his garage. So see out of the window, there's 2 children playing ball. He's eating some pie that his neighbor brought to him. Then he had a thought he had never thought before. I bet I could help them. I could take my ladder and get their ball. So each person is being reminded to be kind and do a good deed. When Mr. Riley handed them back their ball, Jeffrey and Joshua were surprised. They were delighted. As they tossed it back and forth, they saw Mr. Lee hobbling on crutches to his front door. I guess it looks like he has a cast on his foot. He has to use crutches to go out and get his mail. I wonder what they're thinking they could do. What do you think? How could they help Mr. Lee? Well, they had a thought they had never thought before. Mr. Lee can't rake the leaves in his yard, but we could. So they're helping Mr. Lee. They're doing a good deed. And these aren't huge things, boys and girls. These are just little kindnesses that we do for others. Doesn't cost any money. It's just a kindness. When the boys arrived with their rakes, Mr. Lee was surprised. Mr. Lee was delighted. Soon they were joined by Sammy Cohen from next door carrying a rake. My computer is broken, so I can't finish my homework, so I'll help you rake. I think Mr. Lee just heard what Sammy Cohen said, that his computer's broken. Then Mr. Lee had a thought he had never thought before. I'm good at computers. Maybe I could fix Sammy's computer. So Mr. Lee went to Sammy's house. When Mr. Lee arrived, the Cohens were surprised. They were delighted. And before you knew it, the computer was up and running again. Mr. Lee knew how to fix that computer. When Mrs. Cohen sat down to check her email, she looked out the window and saw Ashley next door riding an old rusty bike. Now, she just had her computer fixed, didn't she, by Mr. Lee? And now she's thinking about doing a good deed. She might help Ashley. Then she had a thought she had never thought before. We have a practically new bicycle that Sammy has outgrown. He's too tall for it now. It would be perfect for Ashley. When Mrs. Cohen arrived with the new bike, Ashley was surprised. She was delighted. She rode her new bike around the neighborhood, waving and smiling and calling hello to all her neighbors. I'm glad to see she's wearing a helmet. Remember, if you fall off of your bike and your head hits the concrete, it might really hurt your head, so you must always wear your helmet. The neighbors were surprised. Ashley, remember, she's out riding her bike saying hello to all the neighbors. The neighbors were surprised. The neighbors were delighted. Everyone waved and smiled right back. Soon, even on gray days, Lancaster Street seemed warm and sunny. How had that happened? No one knew. So let's look back at how Lancaster Street looked even on a sunny day. I gotta find the page. Hang on, boys and girls. Okay, here's Lancaster Street, even on a sunny day. Look how gloomy it is. Nobody's outside, but look at it now. The neighbors are out. They're smiling. They're happy. It's sunny. They have a kinship. They've developed a kinship. That means that they feel like they're connected to each other. I like that. I'm seeing more of my neighbors now, and we're waving and saying hello and having a conversation. Well, they didn't know how it happened. Not even Jake realized that it had all begun with a basket of mulberries and one good deed. So here's how it started, boys and girls. A little boy picked mulberries off of a tree. And he gave the mulberries to his neighbor. She made 2 pies and gave it to her neighbor. He got the pie and helped the boys get the ball off the roof of his garage. They helped rake for Mr. Lee, who had a cast on his leg. And the one little boy, remember Sammy Cohen? His computer was broken. He couldn't do his homework, so he thought he'd help with the raking too. And then Mr. Lee helped the Cohen family fix their computer. And then Mrs. Cohen, who just had her computer fixed, had a practically brand new bicycle that wasn't being used anymore. She gave it to Ashley, who was riding a rusty bike. And then Ashley was riding, and she was happy, and she was waving to her neighbors. And so one small deed affected a lot of people, didn't it? I just love that book. Those are simple things we can do, boys and girls, simple gifts. And this Sunday at church, I am going to play my flute, and I've played it for you before, But I'm going to play a song called Simple Gifts because at this time, right now, I am so thankful for simple things. I am thankful for a home and for my family and my pets and food. And I'm thankful for my phone that I can make this video for you. I'm thankful for the internet. I'm thankful for friends. I'm thankful for you. And I'm thankful for a healthy body and a good brain. And those are simple things, aren't they? So I won't play all of my song that I'm going to play at church on Sunday. I'll play a little bit of it, my favorite part. This is my favorite part because it's got some trills in it. And remember, the trills are when I move my finger really fast and it sounds like a bird. Well, this song has some trills in it. So here we go. It's called Simple Gifts. And look at the music that I'm looking at. I don't have this memorized. There's too many notes. Look at all those notes. And just by blowing into the flute and moving my fingers, I can play this song. All right, here we go. So that was just a gift that I hope I gave you to make you feel happy. And you know, boys and girls, there are lots of instruments, not just the flute. Remember at Christmas time, we watched a video of all the animals that visited baby Jesus. And we saw an orchestra playing. And there are instruments that you don't have to blow into. Remember the violin or the fiddle? You use just your fingers and your hand. You don't have to use your air. You can play the drums like this. So there are lots of different instruments that you can learn about. And it's a lot of fun to play. Sometimes I will just play my flute when I don't have anything else to do. And it's a gift to myself. It makes me happy that I can play songs. And so that's maybe something you can do as well. Okay, boys and girls, one more day of our add rhyme family. Add, bad, fad, lad, add, mad, add, pad, add, sad, back to add. Okay, we did some shapes the other day, and we talked about just the basic shapes that are flat. Let me find, here's my circle. We know that that's like a pancake, right? It's flat. There's no space in it, but it is a circle. It goes around and around. It has no corners and no flat sides. But remember, if you've got a ball, it looks like a circle, but it's got space inside. If you cut the ball open, you could put something inside. So remember, this is called a sphere. Sphere, not spear, sphere. So these are partners. We've got one that's flat and one that has space in it. The sun is a sphere. The earth is a sphere. Balls are spheres. Maybe you can look around the house and you can find a sphere and you can find a circle. And you remember the difference between the two. All right, here's our square. 4 sides, 4 equal sides. This is the same length as that, as that, as that. 4 sides, 4 corners, all the same length, okay? But here's a cube. So this part looks like a square, but it's got space inside. Ice cube. So the square is flat, no space. The cube has space in it. So they're partners. Triangle. We know the triangle has 3 equal sides, 3 points. Remember, George Washington's hat was a triangle. My hat, it has 3 corners. 3 corners has my hat. If it didn't have 3 corners, it wouldn't be my hat. I don't think George Washington said that about his hat, but you remember what his hat looked like. But the triangle is flat, okay? It is flat, no space. So here we have a pyramid. Can you see the triangle right there? And if you open that pyramid, there's space inside. There's space. Now I also have a picture of a cone, and I bet if you turned it this way, you'd say, uh-oh, looks like an ice cream cone, right? Now this is a little different, but it still does have a similar shape to a triangle. But truly here is the shape of the triangle with the pyramid. So these are really true partners. Triangle and pyramid, okay? And the last thing I want to read to you is our Let's Find Out. Let me move my camera down a bit. I'm sitting at my piano. I don't play the piano. My boys took lessons and they play the piano, but I don't play the piano, but we keep the piano. It's still useful. It's a piece of furniture more now than what we would play on it. But this is our Let's Find Out. Now I've been reading to you, and I hope you've been reading at home. I know my niece, my great niece, Brooklyn, she reads to her mom and her dad and her grandpa, and it won't be long that you will be reading to your family. Even if you're not able to read the words, you can still look at the pictures, and most of the time you can get the idea what's happening in the book. But this says, what will you read today? That's a question. See the question mark? Listen to me say it. What will you read today? My voice kind of goes up, doesn't it? It's a special day for reading. What kind of books do you like to read? We know there are lots of different books. Which kind of book will you choose? Do you like to read made-up stories? You would choose fiction. A fiction story comes from the author's imagination. So if you make up a story and you write it down, or you have your family write it down, then you're an author and you have just made a fictional book. You made it up in your mind. You might like fiction books. Do you like to read about things? And these are real things like animals, trees, people. Real books. They're not made up, and they're called nonfiction. Nonfiction is not a made-up book. You can learn facts, things about people, plants and animals and places. Do you like, let me turn this back this way. Do you like putting clues together? Choose a mystery. In a mystery, a detective solves a puzzling question. Those are mysteries. Do you like to read stories that are funny? Uh-oh, look, boys and girls. There's our piggy and elephant books. I love those books. Choose a comic. Comics have voice bubbles, and many comics are funny. So remember we said if elephant's talking, the speech bubble is going to be gray, and if piggy's talking, the speech bubble is going to be pink. And there are other characters in the Piggy and Elephant book. There's a snake, and I think when the snake talks, his speech bubble is green, like he is. So if you like those are called comic books. Where can you find all of these books? Where do you think you could find all those books? If you're at school, you have a library. And you know, in my classroom, we have a book tub. That's our library. Or you can go to a real library, okay? And you also can get your own library card. Now, the libraries are closed right now, but when they reopen, maybe your mom and dad, if you don't already have your own library card, maybe you could go get a library card. I like to go to Willard Library. They have a great children's librarian and a children's room down in the basement. And they have children's activities, and they also say that there's a ghost named the Gray Lady. I don't know, I've never seen her. Some people say they smell her perfume sometimes, and sometimes they see her. She's not a scary ghost, though. She's just there. I don't know. I've never seen her. I've never smelled her, so I don't know. That would be up to the people that have seen her and smelled her. So anyway, now then, we talked about how some books have awards on them. Okay, this one's the Caldecott Medal, and once a year, there's a certain group of people that get together and they choose the best book they think for the year, and they give it that medal. And we have seen medals like that on some of our books at school. All right, it means that it has gotten a great award. And so, boys and girls, I hope that you did your community circle question yesterday, which is the best thing about me. The best thing about being me is, you were supposed to talk with your family about that. Our next question is, sometimes during the day, I wish blank. Sometimes during the day, I wish, I'll give you my answer. Sometimes during the day, I wish I wouldn't be so hungry for chocolate. I love chocolate, and if it's here in the house, I'll eat it. So Mr. Schmidt and I just can't buy that sort of stuff because I'll eat it. So that's your question for today. I want you to talk with your family about it. Sometimes during the day, I wish. All right, I'm going to say goodbye. You have a great day, and I'll see you the next time. Bye.